Hello friends, good afternoon. We have in Medica launched this initiative called Medica Cardio Talks, the purpose of which is very simple, and the purpose of which is we wanted on behalf of Cardiac Sciences Medica to talk to you, to communicate with you periodically on certain issues of importance, because the only thing constant in the world today is change. And cardiology, cardiac surgery, cardiac sciences is such a domain that changes with absolute constancy. There are people evaluating therapy, assessing management, and that forms the core of a dynamic specialty that is cardiac sciences. Now we are living in strange times, There are 4 million people in the world affected by a little microbe, and we've been tearing our hair about it. But there are about 40 million people in today's world who are suffering from either one or the other form of heart disease. So both in magnitude and its ferocity, heart disease remains a beast that we need to tame. I'm accompanied here with two of my colleagues, one my senior and one my junior, but both of them has been the driving force of cardiology in Medica. Dr. Dilip Kumar. Dilip, welcome. Ravinda, welcome. And Dilip, I'm a stupid cardiac surgeon. Most of the time I'm not even aware of what happens outside operating theatres. And Dilip and Ravinda have chosen to converse with us, enlighten us about two very important, very interesting areas which has come to a lot of prominence, the domain of discussion in cardiology today. And Dilip, I think it will be good, if we could hear from you that what do you think has changed as far as our ideas about the cardiac decompensation following acute myocardial infarction, trying to support the heart, that circulatory support post myocardial infarction. What do you think has changed, and what new evidence and data is there in front of us today?
Yeah, good afternoon. In fact, cardiogenic shock in acute myocardial infarction is a difficult substrate of patients. Thankfully, the survival of these patients have become better, and in 1973 the survival was 17%, and now it has come up to 76% in recent studies. And the entire credit goes to development of medicines, antiplatelet drugs, prompt revascularization strategies, and of course mechanical circulatory support systems. When we discuss about circulatory support system, basically we have three options: IABP, Impella, and ECMO. I am not touching upon tandem heart because it is not available with us. IABP of late has gone out of favor, and now it is class 3 indications for cardiogenic shock patients. Basically it gives you only mild elevation in cardiac output and very mild reduction in PCWP, and it doesn't work when the blood pressure systolic BP is around 50 or 70. So IBP will be used less in future. Now coming to Impella and ECMO, Impella increases cardiac output, also reduces the preload, and we have got robust registry data of more than 15,000 patients, AMI cardiogenic shock in US data, and it has shown survival up to 60%. But when it comes to RCTs, we are stuck. It is genuinely because of the fact that we recruit very sick patients. You can appreciate that two of the trials, ICER-SOC and IMPRESS trial, which showed negative results with Impella. IMPRESS enrolled the patients, 95% of those had cardiac arrest, and 46% of the enrolled patient had ROSC, return of spontaneous circulation, after 20 minutes of resuscitation. So they were quite sick patients, and 48% of patients had brain death as the final nature of death. And thankfully the sub-analysis of IMPRESS and ICER-SOC, they showed us that if we intervene early, if we do support system before revascularization, or we take lesser sick patients, means those patients where ROSC was achieved in less than 20 minutes, the survival was, the trend was favorable. And that's why we are waiting for danger trial, Danish-German trial, and they are excluding out of hospital cardiac arrest patients. And those patients, all of the patients, device was given before revascularization. So we are looking, forward for this trial. But till now, the registry data looks impressive. Coming to ECMO, ECMO is a wonderful device, and the use of ECMO has really gone up in the last 2-3 years. But there is a problem with ECMO in acute MI cardiogenic shock because ECMO increases the afterload as well as it increases the preload. So the myocardial salvage is less. Virtually it increases the myocardial oxygen demand. So unless we complement it with Impella or IEBP, it's not going to work. So ECMO right now is basically we are seeing it for bridge to transplant or bridge to distal therapy. So Impella looks promising and ECPella looks promising. ECMO plus Impella or IEBP.
No, I think Dilip, you've given a very, very nice perspective. Actually, on ground, what's happening in India is that Impella so far, probably with the exception of Japan, Taiwan and Korea, which is the more affluent wing of the ASEAN, the Impella really has had a very lukewarm introduction in rest of the Asian countries because it remains, the cost effectivity remains a bit dicey at the moment. And there has been a far more uptake of ECMO because ECMO has a larger spectrum of use. ECMO, a lot of the same hardware, almost identical gadgetry can be used in the critical care format. So you are absolutely right. We surgeons are almost addicted to the balloon pump. We use it quite a bit. Honestly, I must confess, on the surgical side, it still remains. Rubinder, before we come to your topic, would you have any comments?
I think just a quick thing. One point is about ECMO. We need to understand that some of these patients may have also an associated pulmonary problem, for example, infection or that kind of thing. If you have a when you don't know why the blood pressure is down, is it because of associated lung condition with heart attack or is because of heart attack? If it's a primary lung condition causing hypertension, maybe ECMO will have some role.
Yes, actually, it is the applicability. We have all these emerging technologies which are very good, but in terms of even ECMO took a long term coming. Outside, sitting in Kolkata as we discuss ECMO here, I think outside of Mumbai and Delhi, our unit probably has the largest ECMO experience. We are running in about three figures ECMO experience now. And what has happened is you have a lot more people who are conversant. Technology is available, expertise is available. So when we are in those kind of high voltage situations at the moment, and my appeal, I think all of us would appeal to the companies who are involved with Impella and Impella type devices that please give it a thought to make it a little bit more readily acceptable.
Right.
It is still too much of a boutique product.
Yeah.
So it's still in the PowerPoint mode.
Yeah.
So it's not getting
in real world.
In the real world situation. I think that was a wonderful thumbnail sketch of how we can support.
Just before we move to the next
yes,
one,
yes.
a quick one line comment about tandem heart.
Yes.
I think being a surgeon may be a good idea for the listeners.
You see, for the tandem heart, etc., there are tandem hearts and there are other bridges to transplantation. Those are bridging devices. And bridging devices, these are the mechanical pumps. These mechanical pumps can help us to support the left ventricle. But there are at times, when you have crashing myocardial infarct, people who misbehave, sometimes they have biventricular affection. So in biventricular affection, there are devices which can provide biventricular support. Now with the biventricular support, you see, the crucial point is that once we have supported somebody with that kind of a bridging device, the question remains, it's a bridge to what?
Yeah.
Is it a bridge to recovery or is it a bridge to transplantation? If you ask me honestly, then I think where we are today at the moment, since very happily for us, in most of the major cities of India, the transplantation rates are good. People are coming, and today, if we discussed this, say, a couple of years earlier, we would be chewing our necks because how many people are we transplanted? But at the moment, using bridge devices in India is a realistic possibility, because if the heart recovers, fair and good. if the heart does not recover, then in our lifetimes what we have seen is that transplant has become a realistic treatment in India. That is very important, so we have to keep it in mind. We now come to another very important area, very interesting area actually, because following, say, an acute infarct or other conditions, we knew that there was the possibility of trying ICD devices. And ICD devices have had a very good impact in saving patients from malignant post-infarct and other kinds of arrhythmias. But there were other problems associated with ICD devices. But what is doing the rounds in recent times is the use of subcutaneous subcutaneous ICD, which is very interesting. And I'm very keen to know about it simply because I know nothing about it. So I'm waiting to hear about it. If Robinda, you give us a brief background on what the ICD concept as it is does, and how is this subcutaneous ICD not just a change, but how is it an improvement?
Correct. So, thank you for this. Good afternoon to everybody. So, as we all know that today, even with so much advancement in cardiovascular sciences, 50% of cardiovascular mortality could be due to sudden cardiac death. ICD has created a revolution in surviving these patients. So, conventionally, the ICDs are being used with a lead which goes transvenously, which means through the vein inside the heart, and then it detects the fast heart rhythm like ventricular tachycardia or ventricular fibrillation preceding the cardiac death. It captures those signals and converts it back to normal rhythm. That is how the ICD works. But the problem and we have been using for many years, I think 25 years we are using it. But we have seen that this device is a good device, saves life, but it has its own problem because it goes through a venous system, stays there, so there could be venous infection, there could be venous blockage, there could be vascular access problem, and furthermore that this may also cause some infection of the heart valve, something like bacterial endocarditis. So number of issues are there, and then after sometimes the device goes off, so you have to put second one, so another ICD lead, and they are bulky lead. So we realize that we need to have an alternative option. Subcutaneous ICD is an alternative option where you put a device on the left side of the axilla, somewhere in the mid-axillary region, take the lead and put it on the left parasternal border, and this senses the irregular heartbeat like ventricular fibrillation and like a pad basically, and then delivers the shock, so the entire heart gets the shock and then comes back to normal rhythm. So this is the reason, and the advantage of that the complications of transvenous ICD is minimized. Therefore, that is one great advantage. But there is one little thing we need to remember, that the transvenous ICD also has a Brady support, which means if the patient needs pacemaker, the transvenous ICD can deliver can operate as a pacemaker itself. Subcutaneous ICD they do not have, but at the same time, those patients, is the data available, who has sudden cardiac death, only 25% may need pacemaker support because they may have sinus node disease or AV node disease. 75% do not. So, but 75% are being subjected to such complication. Therefore, subcutaneous ICD can be a great support. We have got a data which published very recently, and it's been presented just about 2 weeks ago at in a virtual meeting of Heart Rhythm Society called Praetorian Trial, and it is it's basically investigator initiated randomized trial, multicentric trial, and they enrolled about 49 patients and being randomized in transvenous ICD and subcutaneous ICD. It has been proven that subcutaneous ICD is non-inferior to transvenous ICD, but at the same time the complications like venous problem, vascular problem, infection, and these are much less in subcutaneous ICD. So therefore, those patients who are relatively young, who will survive for a longer period of time, those patients who have got a channelopathy producing ventricular tachycardia, those patients who do not require anti-tachycardia pacing support and Brady support, the good candidate for subcutaneous ICD therapy. Today, we have data to support such statement.
I think that's really very interesting, and Can I just ask you, a stupid question, which is, look, am I right in thinking that if we apply an external shock as opposed to something that touches the endocardium, then in terms of the joules, the amount, the quantum of the pulse required, you will need a larger
Relatively, marginal, yes. You're absolutely right. Because what happens when you put a transvenous, it's good that, I'm delighted to say a surgeon is thinking like a cardiologist, an electrophysiologist. But yes, that if you give a transvenous ICD, we program it in different parameters, like 18 joules, then 20 joules and 30 joules. Here you got a fixed joule, little high, we do not take any chance. Just 1 joule says 30 joules and delivers straight away and comes back. But people are working on that to minimize that strength.
So, will that affect the device life?
Yes, so therefore the device life is relatively short. So the life is roughly 5 years. But the newer generation of devices, they are working out to enhance the life. Normal life of ICD is about 8 to 12 years as in general. So they are trying to sort of work it out to minimize the battery decay, and therefore to enhance the life of the device.
I think that has been extremely educative. So friends, I think I have learned a lot from the last few minutes of conversation with Dr. Robin Chakraborty, Dr. Dilip Kumar, and we promise you that we will be. I think our idea is to come back to all of you with these little snippets of what we think is educative, is interesting, and I think both Dilip and Robinda will agree with me that we want this to be a two-way communication. So when this little bit of conversation reaches you, I am sure it will be of some use to you. Please let us have your feedbacks, your comments, and what we need from you is maybe a list of topics that you want us to discuss. And anyway, after a long time, we have spent about 15-20 minutes not discussing the coronavirus. So this is a pleasure in itself. I hope you find it useful. Robinda, I think, would you want the inputs from our viewers?
Yes, sure. Please so get back to us. Let us know with your thoughts, your questions and queries. We will be happy to answer you whatever may be your thoughts. Thank you very much. Thank you for being very interesting.
Dilip, what would you say?
Yeah, we will be discussing the most sought after and controversial topics, and we will be happy if we get the list of topics from all the viewers.
And your questions. Because it is our opportunity to learn as well, right? So thank you very much. Be well, be safe, and we await your feedbacks, your questions, and we'll come back to you very shortly. Thank you. God bless you all.